The events of the game Kriana Fantasy unfold at the Royal Academy of Kriana, a place where magic, honor, and passions intertwine into a single story. It is an extremely popular game of the dating action RPG genre, where the course of events changes depending on the player's choice, revealing numerous fate options. The player can either dive into fierce battles while attending classes at the academy or focus on romantic encounters with its charming heroines. The game offers complete freedom of action, many endings, and the possibility to experience the story in one's own way, creating a unique adventure. However, there is always one character who inevitably stands in the player's way, Alba Iresia, the son of an influential duke. Strong, confident, and arrogant ladies' man with a fiery temper, he is a true antagonist, doomed to become the main hero's enemy. Meanwhile, high in the mountains, a young man steps out of a hut, holding a hoe in his hands. Ahead lies a day of work in the field. This is Alba Iresia, the spoiled son of the duke, who now leads a solitary life among the mountains and nature. Peace reigns around. The singing of birds, the babbling of a river, and distant voices of animals create a harmony of a world far from the hustle and bustle. Starting the day with plowing, Alba reflects on the past, and a memory surfaces in his mind that reveals a terrible truth. In fact, he is not the real Alba. 3 years ago, a completely different person reincarnated into this body. 3 years ago, in the magnificent estate of Duke Iresia, everything began from the moment of awakening. The main character came to in a foreign body, realizing that he had been reborn in Alba's body. At first, he barely recognized either the place where he woke up or his own face reflected in the mirror. But over time, fragments of memory began to return, reminding him of the game he once played. It was a fantastic game about youth and magic, set in the Royal Academy of Kriana. And among all the characters, there was always one who opposed the main character, Alba Iresia. In one of the plots, he took the hero's beloved girl, becoming his rival. In another, he plunged into darkness and transformed into the destroyer of the academy. Whatever the path, the ending was always the same. Alba was doomed to be the main villain. But worse still was that the hero remembered the game only partially, as he never completed all the routes to the end. However, the image of Alba was etched clearly in his memory, an annoying, proud, and stubborn rival who appeared again and again. Looking into the mirror and seeing Alba before him, he asks himself in confusion, did this really happen? Is he now this man? But stronger than fear and confusion, he is overwhelmed by a single thought. Alba is doomed to death. In every plot, he dies, either in a duel over a girl or as punishment for his own evil. No matter which path the player chooses, Alba's death is the inevitable finale. But he refuses to accept this sentence and wait for the end, not understanding why he ended up in this body. Although he does not know how to change fate, he makes the only possible decision to try to avoid his end. And one morning, when his rooms are found empty and all valuables missing, everyone realizes Alba has disappeared. Hearing about the disappearance, the maids immediately inform the Duke, who in fury only shouts Alba's name, clenching his fists in anger. But Alba himself remains convinced that escape is the only way to avoid his predetermined death. Having sold everything he took with him, he hopes to ensure a peaceful life in the wilderness, far from the path that led him to destruction. 3 years have passed since then. After the escape, the first thing he did was cut his hair, sell the remaining jewels, and buy a small cabin in the mountains. Although life is now simpler than before, he enjoys the peace, working in the field on sunny days, reading in the rain, and most importantly, staying alive. At that moment, a girl comes out of the house, apologizing to him for oversleeping. Alba again recalls, the goddess of fate of this world is not merciful enough to grant him peace, yet he still greets the girl with a gentle, "Good morning, Selly." She laughs, responding to the greeting. This is Celia Margaret, one of the possible heroines in the game where he now lives. She reports that he received a letter, but he, suspecting a new debt, just shrugs and jokingly tells her to eat it. And Celia says offendedly that she is not a Cossack, which makes Alba laugh. He gently strokes her head, apologizing, and sees her cheeks flush with joy. Alba knows that according to his own plan, he should not get too close to her. After all, she is one of those who can cause his fatal death. Celia is a saint, chosen by the goddess, known for her gift of healing and ability to foresee calamities, a true legend of this world. But how did it happen that such a holiday is associated specifically with him? The answer lies in the events of 6 months ago, when he lived alone, getting used to the new world. Since it was the same world as in the game, he already knew the local plants and cultures, so he could quickly start farming, and he sincerely enjoyed this opportunity. In those days, he believed that the Iresia family had not yet begun the search, and it was the only consolation amid the constant fear of being found. But in the town, he was met strangely. People looked as if he had long been dead. And when he found out that the family did not deny these rumors, he realized, probably, even his relatives hated him. Not wanting to think about it, he straightens up, wipes the sweat, and finishes harvesting the crop. Suddenly, a strange noise comes from afar, resembling a scream. And indeed, nearby they are attacking the carriage in which the saint is. One of the knights orders her to flee, but in a moment he falls, pierced by a blade. All the guards die afterward, and only the saint remains alive. Pressed against the cart, she trembles with fear, pleadingly shouting that they must not do this. One of the killers suddenly approaches, raising a dagger to strike. But before the blade touches her, a lightning flash bursts between them, and the attacker is thrown back by an explosion of light. Everything happens so quickly that even the killers and the saint herself do not manage to understand what happened. From the lightning glow, Alba appears, calmly saying, he does not know what is happening here, but he cannot tolerate when girls are made to cry. Turning back to the saint, he freezes. Her face seems painfully familiar to him. Trying to recall where he had seen this face, Alba suddenly realizes, before him is one of the main heroines of the game. He is gripped by panic. This very girl is connected to his future death. Despite living as a hermit in the mountains, trying to avoid such encounters, fate has caught up with him again. From this incident, he concludes, the goddess of fate will not allow Alba to escape the destined end, and this gift only bitterly torments him. Just as he is pondering what to do next, assassins appear behind him, ready to attack. The frightened saint screams at him to run, but he does not listen. In an instant, he summons lightning, scattering the attackers with one move, and calmly says that after such a confrontation, there is no point in running anymore. The saint freezes in shock, watching as Alba destroys all the killers in a flash of blue light. Since he settled in the mountains, Alba has trained daily, studying the magic of this world to learn how to control it. That is why he is able to handle enemies so easily. However, even knowing this is the game world, he cannot rid himself of the guilt for their deaths. Realizing that one day he might find himself in their place, Alba firmly decides to fight. Whatever his death may be, he will resist fate to the last. Taking a deep breath, he turns to the girl and gently asks if she is all right. Although he asks, he knows she is in pain. All her guards are dead. He bows his head and sincerely apologizes for not managing to save them. In response, she falls to her knees, bursting into tears. With despair in her voice, she admits that she can no longer endure this. From her trembling words, Alba understands this attack was the last straw that broke her strength. She continues, the saint holds the second most important position in the Church of the Goddess, second only to the Pope. Because of this, she is pursued by those who seek either to seize her power or remove her from the path for their own ambitions. Each time someone dies protecting her, and she can no longer bear this burden. Alba reflects, if this were just a scene from a game, he would perceive it as part of the plot, but now before him is a real person crying out of helplessness. This is not a screen or pixels, this is reality, and these tears are real. Streams of tears run down her cheeks as she quietly admits, she no longer wants to be afraid, she just wants to live an ordinary life. Alba gently places his palm on her head and sits down beside her, trying to calm her. Then with a warm smile, without the slightest hesitation, he asks if she would like to go home with him. Hearing this, the girl freezes, eyes wide open in surprise. And he immediately understands, such a sudden proposal can really confuse anyone, but these words slipped out before he could think. After all, in front of him is not a game character, but a living soul. Alba says she does not fully understand her situation, but sees how she suffers and believes that everyone deserves a rest. It is better to smile after a peaceful day than to cry from exhaustion, even if you are fulfilling a sacred duty. And if her fate is only to bring suffering, he advises simply to run away from it. He feels that this girl, like him, longs to break free from the trap of her fate. Reaching out her hand, Alba adds that if she has nowhere to run, she can run with him. Tears of joy shine again in her eyes as she takes his hand and agrees to go with him. Alba, however, understands he has taken a step that could bring him closer to death again. Alba thinks to himself that it is much better to see her smiling than crying, and it is this very desire that warms his heart. Only half a year has passed. Now her smile shines sincerely and warmly, suiting her much more than tears. When Celia finally regained calm, she wrote a letter to her father, the Pope of the Church of the Goddess, and today received a reply. Alba is curious about what exactly is in the letter, but the girl suddenly hugs him without saying a word. Then he quietly asks if he will stay with her. Hearing this, Alba laughs, which confuses her even more. With a smile, he assures, of course, he will stay, because he was the one who saved her, and therefore is responsible for her until the very end. Celia hugs him again, this time with genuine joy, thanking him for being near. Alba only sighs, suspecting that she wants him to accompany her to the temple where her father lives, and if that is really the case, then he will not avoid punishment. But suddenly, Celia shows him an image and says that they must go there. He freezes, as it turns out to be a brochure with the emblem of the Royal Academy of Cryon, the very one where the events of the game took place. For Alba, this place is like a scaffold, filled with deadly omens, and he swore to himself never to return there. But the goddess of fate seems to laugh at his hopes again. Celia explains, her father advised her to enter the academy if she wants to try living an ordinary life. And if Alba goes with her, it is said to become the best period of her life. Hearing this, he smiles warmly, though his heart tightens. Deep down, he does not even want to set foot on the land of this place, filled with fatal memories. He tried with all his might to stay away from the academy and its heroes, hoping to live a quiet life among the mountains. However, despite all efforts, fate leads him there again, and now they are already standing before the grand gates of the Academy of Cryon. Celia exclaims with admiration how big it is, and Alba nervously agrees, trying to smile. Noticing his paleness, the girl asks worriedly if he is okay, to which he waves it off, saying it is just slight nausea from the journey. Feeling this, Celia gently offers him to rest, laying his head on her lap. Alba blushes thanks but refuses. Although he came here because of her, he does not blame her for anything. After all, Celia does not even suspect the deadly omens waiting for him here, and how closely they are all connected with the heroines of the game, including herself. But then why did he agree to come here, to the place of his own death? To understand this, one must return to the moment when Celia received letters from her father. Among them was one addressed to Alba. Celia's father is the founder and head of the Church of the Goddess, the most powerful religion in this world, a man equal in power to King Cryon himself. Knowing this, Alba feared that the letter might contain threats or accusations, since it was because of him that the girl left her home. However, opening the letter and reading a few lines, he freezes in amazement. There was neither anger nor reproach, only apologies and deep gratitude. Papa explained that Celia became a saint not because she is his daughter, but because she was chosen by the goddess from birth and endowed with miraculous power. Her fate was determined at birth. She devoted her entire life to serving the goddess and her commandments. Since Celia was able to perceive the surrounding world, she traveled the country, visiting those who believe in the goddess, and brought the light of her teachings. Regardless of how difficult or dangerous the path was, Celia never retreated. She sought to save lost souls with the power granted by the goddess. She never complained, only silently fulfilled her duty, and when asked, she answered with a smile, "This is my mission as a saint." Her father felt pride and gratitude every time he heard these words. But now the Pope understands how foolish he was, for he did not notice that behind that smile hid fatigue and loneliness. Now he sees his daughter is just as lost a soul, crying inside, dreaming that someone would save her too. The Pope believes that Alba saved not only Celia's life but also her soul. He is filled with boundless gratitude, though he remembers she is still a saint and he is the supreme servant of the goddess. But as a father, he simply wants his daughter to be happy and have an ordinary life, and he adds in the letter that if Alba wants, he can laugh at this old sinner. Having read these lines, Alba only quietly says that he will not laugh. Seeing his reaction, Celia looks at him in surprise, and he smiles and says that her father is a wonderful person. She immediately agrees joyfully. Further in the letter, the Pope mentions that he has a small request, which makes Alba sigh with irritation. Celia asks what happened, but he silently continues reading. The Pope asks that Alba accompany Celia to the Cryon Academy. He describes the academy as a place where the most gifted people, faithful to the goddess, are gathered, and where education surpasses any other in the kingdom. Having read this, Alba informs Celia that her father wants him to go with her. The Pope is convinced there she will be able to live as she truly wishes. He also writes that he will be calm, knowing that a strong warrior who single-handedly defeated the killers is near his daughter. And he adds that he is sure Celia also wants to stay with him. Seeing Alba frown, the girl gently says that everything is fine. With a smile, she adds that she is not afraid and can go to the academy alone. Hearing this, Alba realizes how skillfully she hides her true feelings. Her smile perfectly masks sadness. He seriously warns that the academy is a dangerous place, full of different people, and not all of them are good. This causes surprise in Celia. He continues, explaining that since the academy is subordinate to the crown, she is not threatened by death as during pilgrimages, but there are many intrusive men there who should not be trusted. Embarrassed by his tone, she only asks if it is still worth going, to which he loudly asks if she still wants to enroll. Celia understands that this is out of his care, and gently replies that she is sure there she will find many true friends. Alba grumbles in response that she will only waste her free time on boring lessons that do not interest her. But Celia happily says that so far she has only studied the Holy Scripture, so she is looking forward to it. He warns that the new place may turn out to be exhausting, but she only laughs and says that on the contrary, she wants to see another world. They look at each other, and after a short pause Alba says, "Then let's go together." Celia beams with happiness, hugging him. Alba, however, realizes that he is once again taking a step toward danger, but now he is ready to fight his own fate to the end. After all, he is convinced. A smile suits Celia much more than any sadness. When she gratefully speaks about the providence of the goddess, Alba only sighs, irritated, because it is this very goddess who leads him to ruin. But thinking more deeply, he begins to doubt. Perhaps it was the goddess herself who brought him into this world. At that moment, he notices another line in the letter and quietly groans, realizing that it does not bode well. Celia notices his reaction and asks if he has changed his mind about the academy. He awkwardly smiles, says no, and even pretends to be looking forward to it. But inside he understands. The reason for his reaction is the Pope's last request, which was, "Under no circumstances dare to make my daughter cry." And so, not by his own will, but because of circumstances, Alba found himself at the academy together with Celia. Having stepped out of the carriage, they headed to the building and both froze, impressed by its scale and grandeur. Alba is amazed. In the game it seemed smaller, but now before him stands a real palace with marble columns and tall towers. Along the alley, ancient statues are visible. Celia explains that these are images of the goddess, the hero, and the sacred beast that protects the chosen girls. She asks if they do not seem beautiful to him, but Alba feels a strange unease, as if each statue is connected to a certain episode of the game, although he does not remember exactly which one. To avoid drawing attention, he reminds her to call him Al. Celia immediately apologizes for her forgetfulness and gently repeats, "All right, Al." For the safety of Celia's father and to avoid deadly omens, Alba now has a new name, Al, a disciple of the Holy Knight. Talking on the way, Celia sincerely wonders, learning that he ran away from home and is even officially considered dead. She confidently says that if his family wants to cause trouble, her father will crush them with his power without hesitation. Hearing this, Alba only mentally shudders at the might of the Pope. However, even with such a protector, he decides to stay as far away as possible from anyone who might push him toward death. Reflecting on his fragmented memories of the game, he suddenly hears a murmur. Someone is shouting someone's name. Turning around, Alba sees the crowd, immediately recognizing Celia, the saint whom no one expected to see here, within the walls of the academy. People rush from all sides, crowding each other, and Alba is simply pushed aside. And at that moment, he understands what he should have feared from the very beginning. Celia is a true star in this world, and everyone wants to touch her blessing. Surrounded by the crowd, the girl pales and begins to panic, not knowing how to escape the attention. She closes her eyes, begging the goddess for an ordinary life, and at that very moment, a flash of lightning breaks through the air. It is Alba who instantly picks up Celia and carries her out of the crowd. He loudly declares that today she is here not as a saint, but as an ordinary student of the Kriana Academy. He urges everyone to restrain themselves and not lose their minds, reminding them that worshipping the goddess does not mean pushing and shoving. And although the title of the Holy Knight is still just a cover, Alba firmly decides to protect Celia, even if it costs him his life. Her smile at this moment reminds him what he is fighting for. The crowd, confused by the lightning-fast actions, stands stunned, not understanding what just happened. People begin to whisper, assuming that this boy with such strength must be the son of a high-ranking nobleman. A girl watches from the crowd, looking after them, but her shock is not caused by Alba's deed. She recognizes him. Her eyes widen as if she sees a familiar face from the past, and for a moment the world around freezes. Inside the academy, Celia suggests hurrying to get the student uniform. But Alba stands motionless, as if bound by invisible chains, not daring to move forward. He thought he was ready, but the reality of being within the walls of the Cryan Academy squeezes his heart with coldness. It is here, behind all the game's storylines, that Alba Erisia was supposed to meet his demise, and now he stands in this place in reality. Celia notices his fingers trembling and gently takes his hand. She says that everything will be all right and asks him not to be afraid because now she is beside him. Hearing this, Alba smiles through bitterness. It's funny that the one who is supposed to protect her now finds support in her warm words. As befits a true saint, Celia instantly quelled the panic in his chest with her quiet, calm, and gentle voice, and Alba felt gratitude, which he expressed with a single broken breath. Then she began to laugh softly and confessed that she was also a little nervous about the new beginning. Entering the main hall of the academy, they find themselves before a huge stained glass window rising to the very ceiling, depicting the figures of a hero and a goddess in a pose that seems to weave protection and blessing into a single bright ornament. Celia thoughtfully wonders whether this image is meant to symbolize the protection of the hero who guards the goddess, while Alba, holding his breath, only marvels at the incredible size of the stained glass and feels the weight of those scenes he once saw only on screen. The girl kneels and begins a prayer, her voice flowing softly and solemnly, like a thread of light stretching from her chest to the living stained glass, and the halls slowly fill with the quiet whisper of holy words. Alba silently notices her constant habit. She never forgets to pray for others, regardless of place or time, her prayers resembling a duty that keeps her spirit pure and gives freedom to her heart. But when Celia confidently asks the goddess to place her in the same class as Al, he feels that there is something too personal, extraordinary, and directed not to everyone but specifically to him in her plea, like a hint of her hidden desires. Later in the uniform distribution department, a strict but kind teacher announces their assignments, and they learn that they have been placed in the unicorn class, where they are given new ceremonial robes, a sign of belonging and the beginning of school life. Celia, like a child, rejoices with a sparkle in her voice at being in the same class as Al, and he feels a slight calm from her joy, although a faint warning about the dangers of the past still hums dimly under his heart. The old teacher, with a melancholic smile, encourages them to enjoy the years ahead, and although this figure seems suspiciously familiar to Alba, like a character who has already appeared in the game's plot, they for now only move away from his words, enjoying the moment. Setting aside all suspicions for a moment, they leave the building, holding their new school robes in their hands and feeling a slight uplift from the thought that many ordinary little things of everyday life lie ahead. Alba feels a moment of relief that nothing has yet reminded him of the tragic events of the game, and Celia eagerly shares her anticipations. She dreams of trying on the uniform, imagines walking the corridors, and meeting new friends. When she calls him Albo again, he quietly reminds her that at the academy she should address him simply as Al, and she politely apologizes for her forgetfulness, again touching on some tender innocence of their new communication. Suddenly someone steps in front of them and loudly shouts the real name, as if challenging their masquerade, and this exclamation shocks both like a cold draft running through the hall. It is the very girl who earlier watched from the crowd. She approaches and directly asks if, despite the changed hairstyle, it is really Alba Irisia before her, and her voice is full of doubt and curiosity. Looking at her fiery red hair, Alba instantly recognizes her, an image imprinted in the memory of the real Alba. She left a mark in it that cannot be erased, even in a foreign body. Her name is Elena, and she is not just one of the potential heroines for the romantic line. She is the one who in the past was called his fiancé, a childhood friend, a person who has a direct connection to a series of fatal events. Moreover, Elena was engaged to the former Alba, and occupied an important place in those plot lines that paved the way to his inevitable demise, so her appearance here raises the risk that old ties may flare up again. Seeing his confusion, Celia tries to save the situation and gently asks Elena if she is mistaken by chance, if she has taken someone for an acquaintance, trying to reduce the tension. Elena ironically nods, saying that before her is exactly the guy who calls himself Al and supposedly plays the role of her companion, her eyes burning with a mixture of suspicion and offense that is hard to hide. Drawing her blade, she boldly steps forward and sharply swings the sword toward his shoulder. The strike is quick and serious, but Alba dodges at the last moment, overcoming the chaos and difficulties of a real encounter with the past. Seeing that their deception no longer holds up to scrutiny, Celia panics and repeats that he is really Al, and tries to divert the crowd, but Elena confidently asserts that this is Alba who ran away from home, and this news hits him like a cold spear. Celia desperately insists that Elena is wrong and asks her to stop, but Elena continues, saying that he was seen here earlier after the escape, and now suspicions about his death and flight take on new features, touching him deeply. Alba tries to pretend to be unaware of the events, feigning indifference, and saying that he has no idea what is being talked about, but his voice trembles because the situation goes beyond a simple lie. Suddenly, Elena moved and unexpectedly rushed into an attack. Her blade flashed, but Alba, trained and alert after life in the mountains, deftly dodges, demonstrating that old skills are not yet lost. She roughly warns that if he continues to pretend, she will not hesitate to cut him in half, and the tone of her voice clearly shows that these are not empty threats, but a sincere desire to lure out the truth. Celia suddenly calls him by name with anxiety in her voice, and Alba waves her off, ordering her to step back, because he feels that if she gets involved in this dispute, the situation could get out of control. Their conflict instantly attracts the attention of passersby, and the gathered crowd gradually forms a circle, subconsciously sensing that a real scene is about to unfold. People begin to recognize Elena as the daughter of the Perseus family, noble and respected, and whisper, surprised that such a noble lady is quarreling with someone who now serves at the Holy, creating even more astonishment and speculation. Elena, ignoring the noise of the crowd, threatens again and with a stern gleam in her eyes demands directly, "Aren't you Alba Iresia, and why are you hiding under a false name?" This question hangs in the air and presses on his heart. Realizing that there is nowhere left to retreat and that his decision to fight fate has led to a point of no return, Alba clenched his teeth, feeling that the battle for his new life, which he chose himself, begins right here and now. After a short pause, Alba confidently states again that his name is Al, as if trying to convince himself of the new name. To this, Elena replies with a cold smile, "Very well, then remember it with your body." Her voice sounds like a verdict. She suddenly launches into an attack, the sword flashing in the air, and her words thunder. This is punishment for daring to deceive the Perseus family. Dodging the blows, Alba realizes how dangerous the situation is. After all, Elena was the best fencer among all the heroines of the game. But what shocks him even more is not her strength, but the sadness in her eyes. She fights not out of anger, but out of pain. When she lunges forward again, Alba disappears right before their eyes, causing her and the crowd to freeze in shock. In a moment he is behind her and calmly tells her to calm down. Her surprise only grows. This move is impossible for an ordinary person. Elena instinctively swings the sword back, but Alba effortlessly stops the blade by touching it with just a finger. This gesture shocks not only her, but also Celia and the watching crowd. Such ease of movement is the result of his magical power, which he achieved after many years of self-study. After fleeing from home, he reread many books about magic, which spoke about the elements of fire, water, and wind, the forces of nature with which one must learn to harmonize their own soul. Recalling this, he remembers how in the game he always explored the enemy's weaknesses before engaging in battle. Following the instructions of the books, Alba began to meditate, focusing on the rhythm of the world around, and felt something beyond the five usual senses. Thanks to these practices, he discovered his natural element, lightning. Since then, he has continuously refined this feeling, training body and spirit until he could control this power at will. His daily exercises turned into art, and magic became an extension of his will. Eventually, he learned to transform his own body into lightning and move instantly, covering vast distances in a moment. And although this power seems incredible to him, he understands it perfectly fits the image of the strongest villain that the game intended him to be. Turning back to the present, Alba asks Elena to at least listen to him, but she brushes him off, unwilling to hear a single nonsense word of a liar. He apologizes, saying that he understands her anger at Alba, but right now he is just Al. His sincerity makes her shudder, and a tremor of feelings appears in her eyes. But as soon as she opens her mouth to answer, he disappears again, this time for good. People around watch in shock as he disappears a second time, but are even more surprised when they notice that Celia disappeared with him. Realizing this, Elena clenches her fists, understanding that they have escaped, and suddenly feels hot tears streaming down her cheeks. When one of the students asks if everything is all right, she barely smiles, wiping away tears, and quietly says that it was just dust that got into her eyes. Meanwhile, Alba is already in another city and breathes a sigh of relief. It seems they are now far enough away. Celia, whom he carried in his arms, looks at him in surprise, still not understanding how it happened. Noticing that she is pounding her fists on his chest, he asks if she is angry. Celia replies that no, but still asks who was that beautiful girl named Elena. Not having had time to answer, he hears her quickly add that although Elena is older, more beautiful, and has greater charms, she is not jealous at all. Alba cannot hold back and bursts out laughing, which only makes Celia even more embarrassed. Smiling warmly, he says that she is a terrible liar, and this simple phrase brings back the ease between them again. Putting jokes aside, he asks if they should go to the house her father prepared for them, but Celia unexpectedly refuses, which genuinely surprises him. Celia clarifies that she will go only on one condition, if he carries her in his arms the whole way. After a short pause, sighing, Alba agrees and the girl smiles happily, tightly hugging his neck. After everything that happened today, he understands with bitter irony that life at the Cryon Academy promises from the very beginning to be full of troubles and surprises. Later, when they finally reach the house prepared for them, both freeze. Before them stands a spacious two-story residence, majestic as if for nobility. While Alba examines the architecture, Celia grabs his hand and with a sparkle in her eyes points aside. There behind the stone fence, there is a small garden, and she enthusiastically says that here they will be able to grow vegetables like in the mountains. Alba of Impressions in the very heart of the capital, where land costs gold, having your own garden is truly a luxury. A two-story house with its own yard, and right next to the academy, such a gift only Papa, Celia's father, can afford. Entering inside, they see neat decoration, new furniture, the smell of wood and cleanliness. On the second floor, each person is allotted a separate room. But one question remained: money. Alba asks if her father gave her any amount, but Celia just shrugs. She explains that her father said, if she wants to live like an ordinary person, she must earn a living herself, without divine help. Alba smiles, mentally praising Papa. He does not spoil his daughter, but truly wants to teach her independence. But as soon as Celia adds that if it becomes too difficult for her, her father still promised to help with money, Alba sighs. It seems this man is indeed too indulgent. Since they have little money, Alba decides to find a job immediately, but Celia unexpectedly says that it is not necessary, she will earn money herself. Seeing his surprise, the girl explains that her father has already arranged her job at the local temple of the goddess. Like a saint, she possesses several divine gifts. One of them is the Herd Oracle, which allows hearing the goddess's warnings and preventing disasters. The other is the power of healing, high magic that cures any wounds and ailments. Sick and suffering people come to the church every day, seeking its touch. Part of the donations brought by believers go directly to Celia, so she can support their lives herself. She accepted this ministry with a pure heart to help people, but Alba understands the true reason for her pilgrimages was not mercy, but someone's greed. Someone very cunning used her sincerity, turning the saint's travels into a source of profit, because the greater her tribulations, the more gold flowed into the church's treasuries. In other words, Celia was a living gold vein for someone. Seeing him frown, she asks what happened, and he quickly looks away, saying nothing. Alba still insists that she will also work so that she does not strain herself alone. And Celia wonders, why, if she can provide for both of them anyway. But he firmly replies that a man who lets a girl work while he does nothing himself is ashamed to look in the mirror. She insists that since they live together, they must share everything, even troubles. In response, Alba coldly says that she should save such care for her future husband. Feeling this, Celia suddenly begins hitting him with her fists on the chest, and when he looks up, he sees the sparkle of tears in her eyes. She says in a trembling voice that she doesn't care, and runs out of the room, throwing over her shoulder that she will have dinner alone. Later, lying in bed, Alba convinces himself that he said nothing bad. After all, he is only her companion, and she has another, true destined partner. The main character of the game Kriana Fantasy is Yuri's, a handsome man and genius, a master of sword and magic, an example of the perfect hero. He is the complete opposite of Alba, kind, noble, bright. All the heroines of the game fall in love with Yuri's, and even Celia is no exception. Alba understands, when the moment of Yuri's meeting with her comes, his own role will end. 3 months have already passed since their acquaintance, and he feels that the thread of fate is slowly tightening around him again. On the first day when he brought her to his cabin in the mountains, Celia looked around every corner in wonder and timidly asked if she could really stay here. Alba assured her that she could live as long as she wished, reminding her that here she was not a saint, but an ordinary girl. After just a few days, she began helping him in the field, working side by side, gathering vegetables and laughing with joy when the earth stuck to her palms. Later, Celia learned to cook together with him and even got used to the simple bathhouse that Alba built himself, a place where after a hard day they talked about little things that seemed the most precious. At night they walked under the starry sky, listening to the wind singing in the mountains and the river shimmering with silver. In those moments Alba felt true peace for the first time, no fear, no anxiety, only warmth beside her. He knows he would be lying to himself if he said he would not be sad when Celia leaves, but if she chooses the path determined by her fate, he will accept it. So he convinces himself, if she moves forward, then perhaps along with this, his own death mark will disappear. A few hours later, there is a quiet knock at the door. Celia enters and shyly apologizes for the previous quarrel. But she notices that Alba has already fallen asleep, his face calm, like a person who has finally found a place where he can rest. She quietly whispers that it is only thanks to him that she is here, covers him with a blanket, and softly thanks him before leaving. The next morning, rays of sunlight break through the window, and the birdsong is heard. Alba wakes up, wonders when he managed to fall asleep, and notices something on the table. There lies food and a note from Celia, an apology for yesterday, and a short message that she has gone to the church to perform her duties. After reading this, he smiles, thanks her mentally, and after washing up, sits down to have breakfast. Tasting the food, he is surprised by the familiar flavor. A burger in a world of swords and magic looks strange but tasty, and he realizes that this is a real game where even reality resembles fantasy. Since Celia earns money at the church, he decides to do the same, to find a job so as not to depend solely on her. Soon he comes to the Adventurers Guild, a place that combines all orders and assignments from across the kingdom. Here they collect requests of any level, from simple deliveries to dangerous tasks involving the extermination of magical creatures. The bravest who take on such matters are adventurers, people who risk their lives for money and glory. In the game Kriana Fantasy, participation in adventures was not mandatory, but for Alba, who now lives inside this world, it is the fastest way to earn money. Approaching the task board, he chooses the most attractive one, destroying the giant magical beast, with a reward of 5 million curies. Although he had never encountered magical monsters, 3 years of training made him confident in his own abilities. But suddenly several guards stop him, saying that this task is of 5-star category, and such tasks are forbidden for beginners. Recalling the rules, Alba realizes that beginners can only take simple 1-star tasks. In the guild, stars are assigned depending on completed missions and merits, so you can't earn big money without gradual growth. He heads to the reception for beginners, where a friendly girl explains that this is the department of first-rank tasks. They discuss the details, and Alba asks which task would be best suited for his level. After reviewing the board, the girl offers him a simple order, gathering healing herbs. Alba agrees and sets off from the guild. Although the pay is small, he accepts it as the beginning of the path. Even a great hero once started from small things. Since hiring a carriage to the Western Forest is too expensive, he decides to get there on his own. Bending into a stance, Alba instantly transforms into a flash of lightning and rushes forward so fast that to random passers-by his movement seems like just a dazzling streak of light. Meanwhile, 2 students of the Cryon Academy are strolling through the city. The girl grumbles discontentedly that dormitory life is a real hassle, but the boy next to her just shrugs, explaining that rent in the royal capital is too expensive. But he adds that they were still lucky. Even commoners rarely get the chance to study at the very Academy of Cryon. The girl agrees with pride in her voice. At that moment, a gust of wind flew past them. The girl asked in surprise if it was a gust of air, but the boy understood. It was a man who flashed by at incredible speed. And this boy turns out to be none other than Juris, the true main hero of Kriana Fantasy, the one destined to become a symbol of goodness and hope. When the girl asks what happened, he only smiles and says nothing, addressing her by name Alice. Changing the subject, Juris asks if she is buying too many things, but Alice replies offended that a girl needs all sorts of little things. Meanwhile, Alba suddenly stops. He also noticed Yuri's, and his heart tightens. Before him stands the hero himself, the one whose meeting begins his fatal path. Later, high in the mountains near the academy, Alba is already finishing gathering the herbs needed for her first task. The work is done, and he is preparing to return, standing on a cliff rising above the forest. Lightly like a shadow, he jumps from one ledge to another, descending down. Thanks to years of life among the mountains, for him it is almost instinct, no fear, no mistake in movement. When Alba returns to the guild, the girl behind the counter is stunned. Only 3 hours have passed, and he has already completed a task that usually takes at least 6. She asks how he managed so quickly, and he simply says that he ran with all his might. She can't believe her ears. But since the task is completed, there is no point in asking more. She gives the reward, still amazed. In 3 hours he earned 10,000 curii, not much, but still a start. To live better, he needs to raise his rank as soon as possible. Putting that aside for later, Alba wonders how Celia is doing now. Meanwhile, in the temple, the girl fulfills her duty as a saint, praying for the crowds of believers who come to her for blessings. The priests are satisfied, her presence attracts people, and the people rejoice, believing that the goddess herself speaks through her. In the same time that Alba was gathering herbs, Celia earned 10 times more. Her prayers bring the temple unprecedented donations. Later, already in the capital, Alba enjoys finishing a hot bowl of noodles. He even finds it a bit strange that ramen exists in this world, almost like in his former life. But the capital is also the home of the Duchy of Eresia, his family. 3 years have passed, and probably the title has already passed to his older brother. Although they are brothers, after reincarnation Alba fled almost immediately, so their relationship remained cold, almost distant. And considering that the family did not even deny rumors of his death, there is no doubt they turned away from him long ago. But unlike the mountains, in the capital live those who know his face. so Alba understands he must be careful not to run into someone like Elena. Leaving the ramen shop, he promises himself to stay alert. Any small detail can become a new sign of death. And just then he hears shouts, "Careful!" The crowd parts and a wild horse rushes down the street. Ahead, a girl stumbles and falls, having no time to escape, and horror fills her eyes as the animal approaches. Alba's heart tightens. Everything happens too fast for anyone to manage to help. In the next moment, a lightning bolt flies through the crowd, striking the side of the horse, tearing the air with a loud rumble. When the dust settles, the stunned girl sees a glow of blue light before her, and Alba, standing between her and the animal, calmly asks if she is all right. When the dust disperses, everyone sees that Alba is standing on the back of the immobilized horse. He knocked it down with one blow, without causing serious harm. He again turns to the girl, asking if she is okay. She trembles slightly but replies that she is unharmed. Jumping off the horse, Alba, despite only stunning the animal, bends down and sincerely apologizes to her. The girl thanks him with relief and surprise. Suddenly she squints, looking closely at his face, and quietly says that she has seen him somewhere before. Alba's heart stops. If she is of noble origin, she could very well recognize the second son of the Duke of Eresia. But before he could answer anything, a murmur rises around the crowd. People applaud and shout, enthusiastically calling him a brave man who tamed the mad horse. Alba hurriedly pulls up his hood, trying to hide his face. He could not just stand aside upon hearing the scream, but now he understands. If he continues to attract attention, inevitably someone will recognize his true identity. At that moment, a squad of knights arrives at the scene. Their commander sharply asks what happened here. The girl whom Alba saved immediately starts to explain, calling the commander Duke Roy Eresia. This makes Alba go silent. This is his brother. Roy also recognizes the girl and asks if she is the daughter of Baron Lupica. She confirms, introducing herself as Mina and reminding him that they met at his investiture ceremony. Then she explains that this stranger saved her from a mad horse. Hearing her address Roy as Duke, Alba becomes more and more convinced. There is no doubt, before him is his brother. Roy thanks the rescuer, expressing gratitude on behalf of the Lupica family and as the person responsible for order in the capital. But Alba remains silent. He cannot allow his brother to find out who stands before him. Not waiting for an answer, Roy frowns and asks whether he is ignoring his words of thanks or is simply so rude. Alba hastily says no, at all not, and tries to leave, politely apologizing. But then a name is heard that chills the blood. Alba. Roy's voice sounds like thunder. He freezes in place. Roy explains that he heard familiar intonations. This voice resembles his foolish younger brother, which is why he shouted that name. Suspecting he is not mistaken, Roy orders him to remove the hood and show his face. Alba snaps in a trembling voice, saying that his face is not worthy of the Duke's gaze. But Roy coldly states that it is not for him to decide, and strictly orders to raise the head. The tension thickens. If he shows his face, everything will end. Alba does not know whether he will be recognized, condemned, or simply killed on the spot. And just then a familiar voice sounds behind. "There you are, Al. I finally found you." Judging by the reaction of those around, everyone recognizes this girl. Her appearance causes whispers and approving exclamations. Roy immediately recognizes her. This is Elena Persia, heiress of a powerful family. She approaches and politely greets him. "Good day, Duke." For Alba, however, this day turns into a nightmare. Behind him is his brother. In front of him is the former fiancé. Both well know the real Alba. With a tiger ahead and a wolf behind, he finds himself trapped where any word could be the last. Roy addresses Elena, asking if she is familiar with this man. She confidently replies that he is her acquaintance, a squire and apprentice named Al. She even adds with a smile that he was late for their meeting because, as befits a future knight, he could not pass by a girl in trouble. Alba looks at her in surprise, not understanding why she is covering for him, although not long ago she almost attacked him. Then Roy asks directly, "So this is not Alba?" Elena pretends to be surprised and assures that she could not confuse him with anyone else. She calmly adds that she was once his fiancée, so she knows Alba's face perfectly, and then reminds everyone present. The real Alba has long been dead. After Elena's words, tension hangs between them. They silently look into each other's eyes, as if measuring their will. In this gaze, both a challenge and mutual understanding. Finally, Roy nods in agreement. "Yes, my foolish brother who disgraced the family name is no more." He apologizes to Alba, to which Alba calmly replies that everything is fine. Having settled the situation, Roy offers to take Mina home. She gratefully agrees, but before leaving, she turns to Alba and thanks him for the rescue. He briefly nods in response. After their departure, only two remain in the square, Alba and Elena. Not wanting to have anything to do with her, he quickly thanks her for the help, says that thanks to her he avoided trouble, and is already turning to leave. He does not understand what is happening, but the main thing is that his cover is preserved. It's time to disappear before everything gets spoiled. But he hasn't taken a step when a blade flashes near his face. Elena has pointed her sword at him again. "Stop, we need to talk," she says, this time calling him by his real name, Alba. He nervously looks away and pretends not to understand, but she coldly warns, if he continues to pretend, she will reveal his identity to the Duke. Realizing that escape is impossible, he sighs and says he will explain everything. Inside, irritation boils, the training hasn't even started, and he's already in trouble. In his thoughts, he curses the goddess of fate, convinced that she enjoys how she entangles his life. The next day, a solemn admission ceremony takes place at the Cryon Academy. The rector welcomes the new students, wishing them to nurture ambitions, improve wisdom, and not forget the high purpose of knowledge. He reminds them that they themselves will carry the future of this kingdom on their shoulders. And this very elderly man who is handing out uniforms energetically finishes the speech, shouting, "May the fate of the goddess shine in our hearts, hooray," causing laughter and applause. Celia looks at him with admiration, calling him very cheerful, and Alba recognizes, this is the same character from the game who gave hints to the player during the events. When the ceremony ends, he and Celia finally officially become students of the academy, and it seems everything went without incident. But deep down Alba understands, the real signs of death are waiting right here, within the walls of this school. There are a total of 5 heroines connected to these fatal plots, and he has already met 2 of them, Celia and Elena. One more mistake, one more connection, and death may become inevitable. One of the rest is a princess, a hidden character who does not appear in the academy, so he can probably not fear her yet. The real danger lies in the other 2, the main hero's childhood friend Alice and the sage's student Lily. They study together with him, so he will have to be extremely careful. But even they do not pose as much threat as one other man, whom Alba must avoid at all costs. This is the main character of the game, Juris, who stands only a few steps away from him. The danger lies not only in the fact that Yuri's is the main character. In the game, every villain who opposed him died by his hand. When Alba secretly glances at him, their eyes suddenly meet, and the heart tightens with anxiety. He instantly looks away, leaving Yuri surprised. When Celia asks what happened and Alice addresses Yuri's, both answer simultaneously that nothing did. Inside, Alba swears to herself, never, under any circumstances, to interfere in the story of Yuri's. She will live through this training quietly, unnoticed, without catastrophe. Later, in the unicorn class where they were assigned, Celia and Alba find themselves in the spotlight. Alba quickly realizes, sitting next to the holiest one is the worst way to remain unnoticed. Everyone whispers, glances, and the piece for him ended as soon as he sat next to her. But instead of strangers' glances, Alba notices Celia's anxiety. He understands that living an ordinary school life will be difficult for her, so what should he do to help? Suddenly, Celia stands up and says loudly, clearly, "My name is Celia Margaret, a first-year student of the unicorn class." She adds that she came here not as a saint, but as an ordinary student, and asks everyone to call her simply Celia. The class instantly comes alive, everyone excitedly chatting. Her sincerity melts the tension, and the students begin addressing her without titles. Alba sighs with relief, one less worry. But the peace does not last long. One girl wonders who the boy next to her is. The others also start looking at Alba, recognizing features and recalling rumors. Alba realizes too late that among the students there are many children of aristocrats. Even a different hair color does not completely hide the face of the former son of the Duke. And then Celia takes the initiative, announcing that this is her friend, a weapons bearer and apprentice named Al. Alba almost yawns in surprise. Such friendship with a stranger looks suspicious even to himself. But the rest of the students immediately believe her words. The power of the saint's authority works unfailingly. Everyone greets Al, and Celia discreetly winks at him. Alba responds with a grateful look. But soon a familiar voice approaches them. It's Elena. She greets warmly, saying that she also belongs to the unicorn class. The students whisper, admiring her beauty and recalling legends about her swordsmanship. Celia quietly asks Alba if this is the same girl he mentioned. He nods and honestly admits that he revealed the truth about himself to her, since they were once engaged. Elena apologizes to him and respectfully addresses Celia, calling her, "Your Holiness." But Celia freezes upon hearing about his past engagement. After the events with Roy, Alba really confessed to Elena that he is the same Alba who once disappeared. Impressed by the meeting, she asked if he ran away 3 years ago because of hatred toward the Arisia house. Alba confirmed, Yes, he wanted to leave his old life and be born anew. He did not mention the transformation, who would believe him, and why expose himself to a new mark of death. Elena said that after his disappearance, the Arisia family turned to their house with a request to break off the engagement. Rumors went that Alba was either killed or died somewhere alone. He just laughed awkwardly. It seemed they thought little of him. Elena sighed. Her family even rejoiced at the breakup. They were glad to get rid of a hooligan. This strangely eased his soul as well. When he cautiously asked if she hated him too, Elena honestly replied, yes, she despised him. She called him a scoundrel and a womanizer, and more than once dreamed of cutting off his head. Alba almost gasped in fear. But after a short pause, she admits, when she found out about his death, she cried. Her eyes softly shine, and there is sincerity in her voice that he did not expect. A childhood memory surfaces. Little Alba once asked why she was sad. Then Elena answered that her father scolded her for unwomanliness and too masculine a character. The little boy then simply said, it doesn't matter how she behaves, the main thing is that she is valuable in herself. Those words made her happy then. Recalling this, she quietly says that she could not hate that young Alba. Alba is surprised. There was no such episode in the game. Maybe the real Alba was not as bad as he was portrayed. Elena continues, noting that he now guards the sacred and even risked his life saving a stranger from a horse. For her, this is proof he really has changed. Alba only smiles awkwardly, because there is indeed a different soul in his body. She whispers something almost inaudibly, that he has become like his former self. Alba did not hear and asks, but she waves it off, saying nothing. Then she seriously asks what he will do with those aristocrats who despise him. Alba answers simply, he will try not to reveal his identity. After a short pause, Elena says she will help him. This sincerely surprises him. He thanks her and a slight blush appears in her eyes, but she immediately clarifies, help has a price. She explains that after the engagement was broken off, she is besieged by persistent suitors, and if they appear here, he must drive them away. Alba almost suffocates. Such a deal contradicts his plan to remain in the shadows. Turning to the present moment, Alba reminds Elena of her promise. She smiles faintly and replies that he himself must not forget about his. Hearing their conversation and learning about the broken engagement, Celia feels turmoil rising in her chest. Countless guesses confuse her thoughts. She intervenes in the conversation, and Elena again addresses her as Your Holiness. Celia strictly reminds that they are now classmates and insists on being called simply Celia. Elena agrees and asks for the same simplicity in return. Instead of formalities, she gently places her palm on Celia's head, softly patting her as a greeting. Celia laughs shyly and returns the greeting. A warm affection immediately arises between them. Celia finds Elena incredibly beautiful, and Elena finds her sweet and sincere. And just as the moment of tenderness passes, Celia turns to Alba reproachfully. Why did he hide his past with Elena? He only sighs, saying he hid nothing. He just never had the right moment to tell. She puffs out her cheeks offendedly, turning away, and even this seems funny and charming to Elena. But the silence is broken by a mocking voice. So that's how it is, the saint in one hand and the beauty Persia in the other. Boy, don't forget who you are, just a mere squire. Alba looks up and calmly asks who it is. The man mockingly calls him a peasant. Elena says coldly that this is Valbe, the eldest son of Count Valjet, one of those persistent suitors she asked Alba to keep away. He smiles sweetly and greets Elena, showering her with compliments, but she only sighs, responding irritably that he hasn't changed at all. Valbe proudly declares that although his family is not ducal, it is still noble, and the union of their houses is a splendid match. Elena coldly reminds that discussing marriage is forbidden at the academy. These words cause a wave of surprise among the students, but Valbe does not stop. He pathetically calls her the flower of the house Persia, blessed with royal blood, assuring that she is worth much more. Finally, full of confidence, he extends his hand and offers her marriage for the mutual benefit of the families. But Elena doesn't even manage to open her mouth when Alba intervenes. What nonsense are you talking? His voice is firm, and although he is partly just fulfilling a promise, there is genuine disgust in his words. You are not suitable for Elena, he says, because you are not even capable of seeing her true value. His courage makes Valbe freeze, and the surrounding students whisper, impressed. Celia, watching, smiles subtly. Pride for Alba grows within her. Elena feels her heart tighten with familiar warmth. These words resemble those he once said to her in childhood. Enraged, Valbe bursts out shouting, demanding explanations for how this ignoble boy dared to insult the house Valjet. I will not forgive this, he exclaims and throws a white handkerchief into the air. Alba instinctively catches it and, confused, asks what it means. But the crowd immediately erupts with shouts. This is a challenge to a duel. Alba stands stunned, realizing he has just agreed unwillingly. The Cryon Academy has strict rules. Deadly fights are forbidden, but everyone has the right to challenge another to a duel to defend their honor. To officially issue a challenge, one must throw a special handkerchief at the opponent, and if the opponent catches it, that is a sign of consent. The fight can only take place in an official arena under the supervision of a judge. And it is then that the judge appears, a black cat named Kate Sit, who solemnly announces the start of the duel between Valbe Valjit and Alba, a student of the unicorn class. The spectators erupt with shouts. Some support Alba, others Valbe, and some came just for the spectacle and the strange cat judge. In the crowd, Celia whispers in horror that he really accepted the challenge, and nearby Elena coldly remarks, fleeing from a duel is a disgrace worse than death, so he should prepare himself. Alba stands stunned. He didn't even know the rules and fell into the trap of his own carelessness. Valbe mocks again, calling him a bumpkin and advising him to surrender before it's too late. But before Alba can respond, the black cat announces, both participants must determine what they are fighting for, what is their pride. Alba recalls in shock that in the game the duel system was only a side event, completely unrelated to his fatal scenes. But now, it seems, this additional mechanic has become his new sign of fate. Valbe solemnly declares, if Alba loses, he must forever stay away from Elena's affairs. He adds that in case of defeat, he will take the same obligation himself. Inside Alba, everything boils. Since this duel is not connected to his signs of death, he calmly accepts the challenge, not restraining his anger. Then if I win, he says, you will stay away from both of us. Valbe smiles confidently and agrees. The judge cat Kate Sit jumps to the referee's spot, solemnly announcing the start of the duel. When the crowd erupts with cheers, Celia asks Elena if Valbe is really that strong. She explains that he is a fire mage, the best in his course in terms of destructive power. Valbe begins to recite a spell, and a pulsating flame ignites in his palm. Alba notices the mana concentrating and guesses that the opponent is about to start with an attack. The judge cat whispers anxiously, high-level spell. Purgatory Flame, roars Valbe and launches a giant fireball straight at Alba. A powerful explosion tears through the arena. The air compresses from the heat, and Celia screams his name in horror. When smoke engulfs the field, Valbe bursts into laughter, certain that only ashes remain of his opponent, and even mocks, asking the judge if killing during a duel is a crime. The cat replies coldly, no, but my job is to prevent that. Seeing Valbe's confusion, he adds, there is no need to intervene yet. And just then a calm voice sounds from behind him. The flame is truly impressive. Everyone turns around, Alba stands behind him, unharmed. But you are too open when reading spells, he adds. Valbe, not believing his eyes, barely utters words. Even the cat judge is amazed at his speed. Those who saw Alba earlier recognize the technique, instant teleportation. They whisper, guessing how he even does it. Elena recalls how, during their first meeting, he similarly disappeared from her sight and even stopped the sword with his finger. His movements truly seem inhuman. Before she can think through the thought, a stranger's voice sounds nearby, Bliskevka. The girl who said this explains that Alba does not create lightning, he transforms into it. Magic is the imposition of phenomena on the world, and he himself becomes a natural phenomenon. The students around whisper, captivated by her words and curious about who she is. Ignoring them, she quietly adds that this is why Alba can cast spells without incantations, although it is almost impossible. Such a method is so dangerous that few can even comprehend it. She mentions his name from the announcement and says that the power he showed belongs to the domain of her teacher, the sage, so she has no intention of losing to him. This girl is Lily, a student of the sage and one of the heroines of Cryon fantasy. Returning to the fight, Alba stands calmly, while Valbe, recovering, jumps back and begins a new, even longer spell. Alba calmly says, I already explained during spellcasting you are defenseless, but he does not listen, focused on the ritual words. Then Alba's body flashes again with blue sparks, and he turns into lightning. At the moment when the spell is not yet finished, a lightning strike pierces the arena, throwing Valbe backward. He flies out of the circle and falls to the ground, losing consciousness. Alba looks a little embarrassed, wondering if he overdid it. The winner is Alba, proclaims Kate Sit, raising her paw. The audience bursts into applause. Some students rush to help the unconscious Valbe. Fortunately, he is alive, just lost consciousness. In the crowd, two watch attentively, Juris, the true hero of the story, and his childhood friend Alice, another of the future heroines. They are both amazed. The boy who conjures without any words contradicts all the laws of magic they knew, and from that moment in their eyes, Alba ceases to be an ordinary student. Alice, full of impressions after the duel, thanks fate that they witnessed the fight, and asks Juris's opinion. He nods and explains that although it seemed Alba won with one strike, in fact he never touched the opponent even once. Yuri says that Alba simply threw his arm forward, with such insane speed, that he created a shockwave capable of throwing Valbe beyond the arena boundaries. Hearing this, Alice is even more amazed, and Juris only confirms, yes, that was the strength of this boy. The girl adds that not only Alba is incredible, when everyone only saw a flash of lightning, Juris managed to discern and analyze its movement. Interested, she asks who would win if Juris and Alba faced off in a duel. He slightly hesitates, but she clarifies, if he could track the lightning-fast movements, then perhaps he can predict them. Alice jokingly concludes that even then he would probably have lost. Juris agrees and calmly says there is no need for such a fight. But after a short pause, he adds, if Alba ever causes pain to those dear to him, then he definitely will not lose. After the duel, Alba meets Celia and Elena. Celia sincerely praises his strength, and Elena, still impressed, asks where he got such power. He says he trained living high in the mountains. In reality, it is not just training, but also the natural power of the true Alba, known only to himself. In the game, Alba is a potential final boss capable of surpassing any hero, and if the one standing before them continues to develop, they will become a force that even the main hero cannot stop. This thought seems to resonate with Juris. Now he understands that his own confidence in strength is not unfounded. There are worthy opponents in this world. Elena, looking intently at Alba, says that he once hated work, but now trains with zeal, as if he has become a completely different person. Alba just smiles and replies, because I was born again. Celia cautiously asks if the former Alba was really that terrible. Elena confirms without hesitation, yes, the worst of people. Alba just awkwardly scratches the back of his head, and Celia objects to her, he is the best. She hugs him tightly, and he, blushing, whispers that within the walls of the academy she should still call him Al. Alba admits that he is worried, whether he went too far during the duel, but Celia firmly says no, because anyone who dares to bother Elena deserves such a flight. Smiling, he promises, if anything happens, she will always heal him. You are a true saint, he says. Elena, looking at them, feels a strange warmth she cannot explain. She thanks him for standing up for her. I promise to protect you, he replies. Her cheeks flush pink and she quietly agrees. Alba sighs with relief, certain that the duel is not connected to his deadly marks, so he can sleep peacefully. But fate is already moving forward. He does not know that all the key figures of his future trials are slowly gathering around. A few days later, in the capital's house, Alba is sleeping when Celia jumps on him, trying to wake him up. He, gasping, mumbles, "Good morning," and asks her to get off, and she jokingly says that otherwise he wouldn't have woken up. After washing up, he sits at the table. Seeing the breakfast Celia prepared, he sincerely praises her, saying she has improved a lot. She smiles and reminds him that she practiced a lot back in the mountains. Then he offers to take care of dinner. Celia happily asks to prepare his signature, Nikujiago. After breakfast, they head to the academy. Celia hands him lunch and reminds him not to forget it, to which he smiles gratefully. Suddenly, Alba notices that the bento looks very similar to what he received in his past life and freezes. Is something wrong? Celia asks. He just smiles. No, everything is fine. She laughs and urges him to hurry so they won't be late. On the way, Celia says she likes the classes at the academy, and Alba sighs, but they seem terribly difficult to me. Displeased 511. During the lesson, Alba twirled a pencil between his fingers and thought about how calm his life at the academy had become. During the lesson, Alba twirled a pencil between his fingers and thought about how calm his life at the academy had become. Since he won the duel on the first day, nothing like the mark of death had happened, and this gave him a strange feeling of relief. When the teacher asks a question, Celia quietly whispers for him to listen more carefully, and Elena confidently answers and receives praise. After classes, Alba walks down the corridor alone. No student comes closer, as if deliberately avoiding him. This makes him think maybe he really overdid it during the duel, so much that everyone started to fear him. However, there is also a bright side. The student's fear allowed him to avoid any fatal events, but instead of joy, he feels only loneliness. During the lunch break, Elena comes to call Celia and asks where Alba is. Celia sighs, explaining that he ate the bento before the break started, and then said he was going to sleep, and now, probably, is dozing somewhere under a tree. Having learned this, Elena shrugs. It seems he really hasn't changed, the same lazy troublemaker. In fact, Alba avoids communal meals because he knows, in the game, such scenes increase the heroine's affection, which meant approaching death. He feels sorry for Celia, but he can't take the risk. Better to stay at a distance than provoke a new flag. Falling asleep under the tree, he suddenly hears a soft voice. A girl asks if she can join him. He opens his eyes in surprise. It's the same girl he saved from the mad horse. She bows and thanks him again. Alba recognizes her face but doesn't remember the name. She smiles. I am Mina. She tells how surprised she was when she found out he also studies at the academy. Alba replies that he is equally surprised, and then Mina offers him her lunch. She shyly admits that she prepared it herself as thanks for the rescue and asks him to accept it. Alba freezes. The scene is painfully familiar, exactly like one of the romantic episodes in the game. But in his memory, there is no heroine named Mina, so she is a side character, not part of the main storyline. Seeing that he is silent, the girl blushes and apologizes, thinking that he has refused her. But Alba quickly takes the bento from her hands and thanks her. I will gladly accept, he adds, and Mina immediately blossoms with happiness. Since she is not the main heroine, there can be no dangerous consequences, he decides, opening the box. They sit under a tree, savoring the dish. Alba says that it is incredibly tasty. Mina blushes with joy. Really, I was so afraid it would turn out badly. She constantly addresses him as Sir Al, so he asks her not to add the title since they are classmates. She nods, then just Al. Alba warns her not to get too close. People might start avoiding her too. Mina calmly replies that it is her choice, and she does not care what others think. There is no hesitation in her gaze, and Alba understands. This girl has a strong will, even if her story is just a background. Mina smiles and adds that there are advantages to being friends with him. Maybe you'll save me again. They both laugh, and Alba says that, of course, he will always help. But at that very moment, Celia appears with a tense smile. I see you are no longer against company. Dining with me, no, but with another, please. Alba instantly stands up, feverishly explaining that it is all a misunderstanding, and he is not courting Mina at all. Mina also abruptly gets up and says she is returning to class, which confuses Alba. As a farewell, she politely greets Celia and hurriedly leaves. Her sudden departure leaves both confused. They do not understand what exactly happened. But the real reason is different. Mina recognized Celia as the saint herself and was flustered, not daring to stay. Putting that aside, Alba explains that the girl is his classmate, whom he once helped. Hearing this, Celia asks if she is the same one who was attacked by a mad horse. He confirms, adding that she is from the Lupica barony, and even Elena mentioned her. Celia thoughtfully says that as their classmate, Mina will probably participate in the next event. This word makes Alba shiver. He suddenly remembers that today the first story event begins. In Kriana fantasy, this is the famous trial, the youth field expedition, introduced by the academy director himself. According to the event rules, students must gather healing herbs and fight magical beasts in the Nyap forest, where novice training takes place. Only weak monsters appear there, so everything should be safe. But this is a key event because the real game starts from it. The choice of actions in this episode allows the player to strengthen the bond with one of the heroines. For Alba, any wrong step can become a new sign of death, and he will do everything to avoid it. On the same day, the students are taken to the Nyap forest. Celia is a little nervous and asks if it is scary to fight magical beasts. Alba smiles and assures her that everything is fine, teachers are with them, and there are only weak creatures here. Elena adds that as long as she has a sword, no one will get hurt. At this time, the teacher calls everyone to follow him and jokes that he is not one of those who will be defeated by the beast. Alba, remembering the game, only frowns. He knows that the teacher's smile will soon disappear. Variants of choice from the game come to mind, helping Celia save the students. Or fight side by side with Elena. The third way is to save Ali's, the hero's childhood friend, and another one is connected with Lily, although he does not remember the details. Be that as it may, in any case, the main hero inevitably appears. So Alba must be extremely careful not to choose the same branch of events as Yuri's and not get into trouble. When the field campaign begins, Celia and her friends examine the thickets. Elena skillfully cuts through several beasts, eliciting admiration from the students. Meanwhile, Yuri's and Ali's are talking leisurely aside, and Lily is sitting under a tree, immersed in a book. The teacher orders everyone to be quiet, not to scatter. They are approaching a place where magical beasts live. But suddenly he feels a slight trembling of the earth. The unusual sensation quickly turns into anxiety as the rumble grows closer and closer. And only when a wave of roar and dust bursts out of the forest does he realize the truth. This is a real horde attack. Fear grips the students. The teacher tries to stay calm and orders everyone to retreat immediately. Celia, being near a group of mentors, sees monsters and freezes in horror, while Elena takes command, shouting for everyone to maintain order. Meanwhile, Lily feels a strange energy somewhere nearby, and Ali's gets lost in the crowd. Juris draws his sword when he sees the crowd fleeing in panic. Alba, who had long foreseen this scene, understands the legendary event has begun, the great onslaught of demonic beasts. The instructor again orders everyone to stay calm, to leave the forest, while he himself remains as bait. When the roar of the monsters becomes unbearable, Celia's friends shout for her to run. She agrees, and Elena orders everyone to gather behind her. As usual, meanwhile, Alba carefully weighs his actions, understanding every step in this mission can affect his connection with the heroines. Meanwhile, Alba carefully weighs his actions, understanding every step in this mission can affect his connection with the heroines. And the closer this connection, the closer and more inevitable his own mark of death, a fate he must avoid at all costs. With this thought, he decides to act like a former villain from the game, the same Alba who always chose the path of escape at critical moments. So the plan is simple: abandon everyone and just run away. Meanwhile, Celia and her friends have already moved to a safe distance, but suddenly, a huge bear-like monster attacks one of them. Frightened, Celia screams, attracting the beast's attention. It lunges straight at her. She closes her eyes and lets out a scream, calling Alba, not even knowing where he is. And at that very moment, lightning splits the air. Alba appears before her and with a powerful strike throws the beast back. When Celia opens her eyes and sees a familiar face, her heart fills with relief. After the monster falls, Alba insists that Celia immediately leave the forest. She thanks him but stubbornly refuses to run. Using healing magic, Celia heals her friend and, trembling, admits that she is scared, yet she cannot flee while others need help. She believes that with Alba's power he is capable of saving everyone and asks him to do so. Hearing her words, Alba silently nods. At this moment, he no longer thinks about logic or fatal flags. Running away alone and abandoning others would be shameful. He accepts Celia's request, promises to protect everyone, and asks her to be careful. Meanwhile, Elena fearlessly fights a giant mantis and easily cuts it in half. She orders the others to retreat, but suddenly two more shadows grow behind her, new monsters. However, before they manage to strike, the sky is torn by lightning. Alba destroys both with one flash. He asks if everything is all right. Elena, a bit puzzled, proudly replies that of course it is, and that he better not underestimate her. Alba smiles. He knows perfectly well how strong she is, and these words warm her heart. But still, he advises her to be cautious. Excessive confidence can kill. Then he asks her to take this part of the forest under her care, and he will go further. She nods and wishes him luck. Alba sets off into the depths of the thickets, scorching the beasts that cross her path. According to his memories of the game, the event ends when the hero defeats the boss living in the deepest part of the forest. But now he is worried about something else. The level of the beasts clearly does not match the training quest. They are too strong. In place of weak animals appear mid-level monsters. Alba realizes that the scenario is beginning to change, possibly because he himself disrupted the course of the story. And when he finally reaches the heart of the forest, a creature appears before him that should not have been there, a three-headed demonic chimera. Alba remembers this fight from the game. Back then he barely won, and this is definitely not the initial boss. And then his ears are pierced by a human scream for help. Looking aside, he sees a girl whose tail of the chimera squeezes like a snake, but even more stunning is that he recognizes her. This is Alice, one of the main heroines. She cries out pleadingly that she is lost and has fallen into the monster's clutches. Although she is connected to his deadly mark, Alba cannot leave her. Like a flash of a thunderstorm, he rushes forward and attacks the chimera. However, his blows do not cause damage. Instead, the monster spews flames, and he barely manages to dodge. Alice screams that fuss 601. Alice quickly explains that the chimera changes its states. In one it is resistant to magic but weak to physical attacks, and in the other, vice versa. There are only two cycles that constantly alternate. Alice quickly explains that the chimera changes its states. In one it is resistant to magic but weak to physical attacks, and in the other, vice versa. There are only two cycles that constantly alternate. Since Alba attacks with lightning, the monster is now in a phase where magic does not affect it. Realizing this, he finally understands why this boss was once so exhausting in the game. In the game, defeating the chimera alone was impossible. It required coordinated work from all the player's allies. Recalling this mechanic, Alba decides to use magic to close the distance, and then strike physically. He acts according to plan and lands a powerful blow, but suddenly the chimera begins to speak in a human voice. Such strikes are useless. You will never win, the creature mocks, its three heads moving synchronously, radiating rage. It instantly counterattacks, but Alba jumps aside, dodging the tail strike and tries to gain distance. Without weapons, this seems hopeless, but he has no choice. He must find a way to win barehanded. Alice, clenching her fists, shouts at him that such an attempt looks pathetic and demands that he fight properly. Annoyed, Alba snaps back that maybe she shouldn't lecture when she herself is hanging in the monster's grasp. The chimera, enraged by these words, squeezes the girl even harder with its tail, making her scream in pain. However, at that very moment the tail shatters into pieces. It is cut by a shining blade slicing through the air. Alba stops in amazement. Before him stands Juris. Alice, barely breathing, smiles. She knew that Juris would come to save her. Of course, he replies confidently. Chimera shifts attention to the new opponent. Yuris carefully lays Alice under the tree and tells her to rest, then steps forward himself. He rushes into the attack, saying that he is also angry, because no one is allowed to hurt those dear to him. Alba, observing, marvels at the precision of his movements, although she expected it. After all, Juris is the main character. But his blows, though precise, cause almost no harm. The chimera barely wavers, as if mocking. Alice explains that the monster has changed phase again. Now it is resistant to physical attacks, but vulnerable to magic. Realizing this, Alba returns to the fight and delivers a kick charged with lightning. This time the strike lands. One of the chimera's heads shudders from the powerful explosion, and the monster roars in pain. Although Yuris is the last person he would want to work with, Alba decides to act together to finish the battle faster. He throws out a short, "I will help." Alice looks at them with admiration. It looks like a clash of two elements. Yuris asks about the plan, but Alba just clenches her fist. There is no plan, just fight. Yuris nods and they both rush forward, merging into a lightning-fast dance. Alba strikes first with a lightning-fast blow, but the chimera again changes its weakness. The strike passes without effect. Yuris takes advantage of this moment and delivers a sword strike, forcing the monster to retreat. "Let's take turns," he shouts. Alba agrees. From the side, Alice watches how they act in harmony and realizes the chimera made a fatal mistake choosing them as opponents. If she defends against Alba's magic, Yuri's sword pierces her. If against the sword, she is burned by lightning. Their coordination is flawless. They move as if a single mechanism, becoming an invincible pair of first-year students. Yuris, captivated, admits to himself, Alba's magic, based on lightning, is both terrifying and beautiful, like the very power of the heavens. The chimera's form begins to change, its body pulses and twists, causing even greater horror and amazement in Alba. The teacher bravely stands his ground, engaging in an uneven fight to buy time and let the students escape. Alba, in turn, is impressed by Yuri's sword speed. His movements are almost too fast to catch, even with a lightning eye. Together, they effortlessly finish off the chimera. After the battle, Yuris thanks Alba, sincerely glad they managed to save Alice. She also expresses gratitude, but Alba just waves it off. "It's nothing, forget it." Then Yuris, changing the subject, asks how Alba knows their names, since they only know his after the duel. Caught off guard, Alba jokes that he just remembers strong peers. Alice calls it childish but still believes it. After all, Yuris really is the strongest student in their village. Alba, as if casually, asks if they really grew up together. Yuris confirms they are from the same village, and that's why he sighed with relief when he saw her alive. Hearing this, Alice asks if he was really that worried. He nods. "You're like a younger sister to me." She smiles crookedly, quietly clicks her tongue and repeats, "Younger sister, you say." Alba notices her expression before the girl suddenly hits Juris on the shoulder, mumbling that maybe now she will be older. He only sighs inwardly. Juris really has no peace. After this, Juris suggests returning to the others, but since he and Ali's belong to the Holy Wolf and Alba to the Holy Horse, he decides to go alone. Yuris insists on at least walking part of the way together, and Ali's adds that they should not stay apart, now they are friends. However, Alba refuses, citing a dislike of company, although the real reason is that both are living flags of death to him. Seeing that he is resolute, Juris does not argue and accepts his decision. Before parting, he says, "I will never forget your kindness." In his thoughts, Alba quietly asks him not to look at him with such a sincere smile. For fate destined them to become rivals, doomed someday to cross swords to the death. It would have been easier if Juris had hated him from the very beginning. When they leave, Alba feels a foreign breath. He turns to the tree and loudly asks who is there. Since no one is visible, he assumes it is invisibility magic, but no answer comes. Then Alba says that it is useless. In the state of lightning, he clearly feels any presence nearby. He orders the stranger to come out of the shelter and asks if she is the enemy. Hearing this, the invisible figure whispered in surprise that they did not expect anyone to recognize their camouflage technique so easily. When the spells dissipate, a girl appears before him. This is Lily. Alba freezes in amazement. Thinking that he does not know her, she politely introduces herself. Alba in turn asks how she knows his name. The girl replies that there is not a single freshman who hasn't heard about him after that loud duel. This only irritates Alba, he sighs, regretting that he ever accepted the challenge from that foolish Volby, because of whom there is now so much trouble. Discarding this thought, he asks why she was hiding. Lily explains that when she arrived, the battle was already ongoing, so she was just observing. She adds that she has only seen similar magic from her teacher. Alba guesses that it is about his lightning, but Lily denies it and asks him to look at the chimera. And indeed, the beast's body begins to dissolve into smoke. Alba watches, not believing his eyes. Alize explains, the chimera disappeared because its magical energy was exhausted. It is not a real creature, but an artificially summoned phenomenon from another dimension. To Alba, this sounds like abracadabra. Therefore, Lily patiently adds that all this is connected with the theory of interdimensional creation of magical phenomena. Even after this, Alba only blinks, so the girl repeats the name of the theory once more. Similarly, someone used magic to create a copy of the phenomenon, the chimera, and transfer it from another world into this one. She explains simply, ordinary flame in the world arises from friction. This is a natural law. And magic breaks this law, creating flames literally from nothing, against the very logic of nature. Hearing this, Alba asks if it disappeared because it was not a real creature, but a magical imitation. Lily nods and explains, such magic is special, ordinary people are not capable of using it. If so, Alba reasons, then those who created it could have been. But he does not manage to finish. Lily confirms that the attackers apparently were deliberately hunting students. And indeed, far from the scene, two mages observe everything through a magical mirror, commenting on the result with satisfaction. One of them is amazed that a freshman managed to defeat the chimera alone, calling the Cryon Academy an impressive place. The other calmly notes that it is not surprising. The academy is one of the three great powers, alongside the royal court and the church. Putting aside the chatter, the mage addresses the other, calling her Yoru, and says that her mana is exhausted. Continuing is impossible. They decide to retreat. Yoru calls her interlocutor Melody and asks if there will be another chance. She replies that now Yoru should act herself if she can, to which Yoru only grumbles that her power is not suitable for group battles. After a brief exchange of remarks, both disappear, teleporting in an unknown direction. Meanwhile, Alba, left with Lily, sinks into thought. This event was supposed to be an ordinary training quest, but everything got out of control. The game world is changing. He suspects that the mages who create monsters may be directly connected to his own flag of death. If these are enemies, he will show no mercy. Lily reports that after the chimera disappeared, magical activity in the forest ceased, so there is no more danger. Alba decides to return and asks her to do the same. When he leaves, Lily calls him and asks who taught him such magic. Alba calmly replies that he is self-taught. Hearing this, the girl whispers something in an unknown language, then smiles. Interesting, you are truly worth attention. Having said this, she turns around and leaves, leaving Alba confused. He realizes that he has once again accidentally triggered a bonding event with Lily. Meanwhile, Celia is treating the wounded, and Elena finishes off the remaining monsters, which begin to dissolve like a mirage. Seeing this, Alice guesses that someone artificially stopped the source of magic, while Lily, watching from afar, quietly smiles to herself. Alba only clenches his fists. Now all the main heroines have an interest in him. His death seems to be only a matter of time. And yet when he returns to Celia and Elena and sees that everyone is alive, he feels genuine relief. At that time, within the walls of the academy, the black watchcat reports to the rector, no casualties. The rector thanks the cat, calling him Tamakuro. The cat begins to speculate about the attacker's purpose, but the old director finishes the sentence himself. Probably they were hunting freshmen, or something worse. He is troubled not by the attack itself, but by the fact that it is unknown who is behind all this and where they came from. Whatever the case, he finally says, looking out the window, these enemies must know. The Kriana Academy is not a place to play with fate.